Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not To Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Legends of Tomorrow, a great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Legends of Tomorrow continuing to be a weird show in a great way, in a sense that they literally genre bent. Like, this show I can't speak, sorry. Continues to bend genres. It started off as a pure science fictional show, then we get all supernatural and fantasy with it, and now it's like, this episode was literally part horror slasher, part romantic comedy. It's nuts. Alright, and this episode kind of made me feel like, I was like, this episode kind of felt like a supernatural episode too. Obviously because I love supernatural, so I don't mean that as a knock. It just aesthetically felt like one of like, oh, someone coming back from the dead and being a serial killer and stuff like that. It felt very supernatural, and I thought that was really interesting. Also, this season's gotten bloody. Like, first the Rasputin thing in the first episode, now this, it's like, holy crap, like, especially even the blood splatter kind of reminded me of something like Supernatural, like you cut away from someone getting murdered, blood splattering like that. It's just interesting. I guess we can kind of expect this season to be darker and bloodier, maybe. I mean, to be fair, we are literally dealing with history's serial killers, worst bad guys. Oh, not necessarily just serial killers, but just like history's worst of the worst. So you shouldn't be too surprised in that regard, but nevertheless, basically the episode revolves around this dude named Freddie. He was killed in 2004. Executed in 2004 because he was this, well-known serial killer. And obviously the team picks up on this case because obviously he's an encore now. And I love that, like, everyone's like, the moment they find out, like, Ava's excited. She's like, oh my God, it's Freddie. And it's like, everyone's just kind of like, she's like, he's ranked number 5 on, Stabcast. And I love Ray mouthing the word Stabcast. And she's like, it's my serial killer podcast. Come on, guys. And then, like, you have Sarah being like, oh, she's like, babe, like, you don't listen to my content? And then later on you hear Nate kind of listening to it. He's like, oh, it's informative. He even references like a sponsor of the body. I was like, this is too good. It's too real. Also, it's so interesting that Ava's so obsessed with serial killers. She has a podcast and everything. It's so really interesting. So it's like, all right, you know what we're going to do? We're going to go capture a serial killer. I'm like, dude, like I said, Legends just keep switching things up. So they travel back to 2004 and everything, trying to stop Freddy from, downright killing people. So, obviously, like, him, because he has telekinetic abilities, so now, like, the entire school is locked down. I even love that moment where, like, Ray and Nate popped up on the other side and scared Rory, Ava and Sarah. I love that. I was like, dude, this feels like a horror movie. And you're like, oh, and she's like, kinetic. I think, and even Ava, like, psychoanalyzing, being like, the fact of the matter is, serial killers don't ever feel powerful, so they kind of have this power now. Kind of makes sense. I'm gonna have to readjust my ratings, my rankings. And then Nate's like, wait, what? And then Mick is like, yeah, we gotta go find Allie. I mean, whoever her face is, that girl I don't know. I love it because it turns out Mick is like, why are we at my school? Like, you went to school here? Why'd you tell us? That's why you need to show up at the meetings, Mick. Because I love that he wasn't there, but all of a sudden, like, wasn't at the meeting, but he gets dragged along with this. But it's like, huh? Because he was like, nah, because it was, it was, stupid or whatever. And so it was like, because Allie's like, Mick, Rory? He's like, nah, you got me confused. I'm dick. And walks away. So I love that. I also love that while they're down the hallway, like, we know you're there, Freddie. Like, there's some empty spots in your psychological profile, essentially, that you kind of have to answer for. And Sarah's like, babe. And she's like, and we're going to take you back to hell. Yeah. I was like, Ava, I love it. The sad thing is, like, it turns into a situation of, like, I was like, holy crap, they're going for this. Like, people start dropping. First, that, like, security guard or police officer outside. Then the victim, Tiffany. And then the girl that Mick was trying to save Allie. Because the sad thing is, it's like, oh, like, they met up. He was like, hey, like, she wants to get out of here. So it seems like she's kind of a bit of a rebel, which kind of clicks very nicely with Mick. And the fact is, she's like, because she's trying to talk about the past and stuff like that, and Mick kind of just shies away from it because she's like, yeah, like, what have you done with your life? It's like, well, I was a criminal for a long time, still am a criminal, became a successful author. Also, I time travel around and kind of, kick it with some others. Not really, he didn't really dive into that, but, that's obviously what Mick's been up to. But sadly, she ends up getting killed. The other lady, it kind of sucks because she ended up getting crushed in the locker. I was like, are they going to save her in time? It's like, nope, the locker starts playing. I was like, oh, I wasn't, wow. Like I said, very much a supernatural episode. That's nuts. But I also appreciate this episode doubling up on time travel because obviously the team goes back to 1989 because Ray had it in his mind of like, hey, why don't we try to deal with this encore situation a little differently? Because it's like, yeah, we're past the whole pretenses of us trying not to change time. I'm like, yeah, you guys do change time a lot. I mean, a lot. It was such a focal point before, and it became more of a point because they were trying not to screw up because every season they basically screwed up, except this season it's not their fault. So, but now it's kind of like, why don't we just kind of stop like pretending like we're not going to change time and kind of change time, because time has changed quite a lot because of the legends. So it's kind of like, why not lean into that? Why don't we change the encores, go back to when they're younger and mold them so they don't become bad guys? That way we get rid of them present day. That's an interesting. It's the whole, obviously it's the time travel thing of like, okay, if you could go back in time, would you kill baby Hitler type of situation? It's literally the same vein, same line initially, but it's like, oh, you can't really do that. But it's like, well, I mean, to be fair, it's like, obviously they have proof of concept because they were able to change Nora. Ray in particular was able to change Nora, which obviously Nora's dealing with the whole being a fairy godmother thing. It's so exhausting because every kid wants it's a pony, and it's just like, she's kind of like, why is that like the go-to thing? So she's kind of exhausted from it. Ray's trying to set the mood and everything. He's telling Gideon to play Chicago, and it's like Nora's exhausted and it's like, Gideon, don't play Chicago. She's like, I wasn't. I was like, is that supposed to be like an inside joke production wise? I'm like, and that'd probably cost too much money to actually get Chicago, like any Chicago song. I was wondering if that was what that's supposed to be, like a little wink and a nod to. Like I said, because the show is very self-referential and even to the point very self-deprecating. So that could be their thing of like, honestly, it would cost so much damn money to get that song, so we're not going down that lane. But Nora, Barad, I keep saying his name wrong. Barad, Ray, and Nate all go back to 1989, along with Zara, who's still on the ship because Barad is kind of locking her away because he still hasn't told her everything that's up. But obviously Nate doesn't want her memory wiped and just kind of drop back off to present day. Well, present day for them, that being the future. It's like he doesn't want, because it's like Nate's hoping that being on the ship might remind her of who she was, because he doesn't understand like the full scope of everything between them. But regardless of it, he still feels it when he sees her, even if she doesn't remember. So there's that whole situation in itself. So I love that it's like, all right, Nora feels the strong pull of like a kid that's in need, and she goes and meets with Freddie. Because I love that Nate and Ray try to approach this differently. They're trying to like be there. It's like, oh, he's going to prom with Tiffany. It's like, oh, obviously they're playing a trick on him. It's like, this is going full blown Carrie. I guess none of them saw. Oh, because that ended up being something he ends up referencing later on. But I love the fact that they try to like, hey, rather than going to prom, maybe you should focus on turning this A into an A+. It's like, no running in the halls, mister. And the fact is, like we're teachers here, we care. It's like, I love that. But nevertheless, Nora's there, and she's kind of scared because she's like, oh, Freddie's going to ask me to hurt his suit. And it's like, he's like, I want a suit. And she's like, wait, really? He's like, yeah. And she gives him a new suit and everything. And he's also like, all right, we got to show up in style. I want a pony. And she's like, really, kid? But they show up at prom and everything. It's him and Tiffany. I'm like, oh man, this is actually sweet. And then, like I said, it shifts over. Like I said, shifting back and forth between 2004 and 1989, and the whole situation. Like I said, literally flipping genres in between. Oh, horror, slasher, the comedy, drama. I mean, they even make like, oh, this feels like a huge movie. And so I was just like, I love that they kind of play with the genre bending in this episode in that regard. But it's like, oh, Tiffany and Freddie were actually having a good time, and Nora's like, oh, so this is high school prom. It's like, yeah. He's like, yeah, it's kind of boring. I know it's kind of like not that great, isn't it? But she's like, no, I really like it. But then obviously, like, Tiffany was supposed to get him in position to kind of so they can dump trash on him, like legit Carrie. Obviously the exception being like Carrie's situation was blood, but you get it's still the reference. But the fact of the matter is, Tiffany kind of changed her mind because she was like, no, she kind of liked Freddie because he was more confident in everything. But obviously the night kind of goes wrong, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of a bummer. Because at first my thought was like, all right, if you change this, maybe history ends up changing. Freddie doesn't become the killer, but maybe someone ends up taking his spot. I was thinking something similar to that. But then things started playing out throughout the episode, especially Nora trying to reach out to him. And I love that because obviously, because that's something Nora had talked about earlier in the episode. She's like, I know what it's like. That you basically, oh, what was the conversation like? She's like, it wasn't earlier. It was in this particular moment. She was like, you don't have to give in to your demons, because she's like, I literally know what it's like, to be kind of mad at the world. And I was like, I like that they made this. I mean, it's very befitting her being a fairy godmother to kids, but also like, because, well, in many different regards, because her childhood was kind of taken from her, not kind of, but straight up taken from her by her dad and just everything that he was trying to do and accomplish. So she never had a normal childhood. So her being a fairy godmother is very befitting, kind of helping kids get what they want and what they need. And obviously she's doing the same thing for Freddie. And obviously there's even a parallel that between that. Like, yeah, you don't have to, show them who you really are. You want to show those, so what are you going to do? And Freddie puts on a dance number and shows her. I'm like, yo, this is so cool. And then obviously it's like, DJ Nora kind of helping out and everything, getting rid of the trash, causing some like explosions and stuff to kind of like make the whole thing. And like the moment Freddie gets on the dance floor, other people start dancing with him. I'm like, yo, this is actually so cool. And it turns out it's working. But then I start thinking like, are we going to get, but then it's like things didn't change in 2004. I'm like, it's his mom, is it? We're going full blown Norman Bates here. And then I start thinking like maybe his mom was a killer, but it also made him into one or something. That's what I was curious about. But it was actually kind of sad when we actually figure out the whole situation, because it turns out that his mom was the killer the entire time. Freddie just went to prison to protect his mom, because his mom is kind of all that he had, And so that was really, I thought that was an interesting development. And also, I didn't expect them to kill, because Mick got pissed because he wanted to get revenge for Allie, because Allie wasn't just some random girl. She was someone that he kind of liked, but he went to juvie, and when he kind of broke out, he kind of stood her up. But it's a regret he had, so. But he wanted to get revenge for Allie and tries to burn Freddie's mom, but she uses her powers to basically knock the flames back and burn her. I was like, oh, Mick is dead. I'm like, what? And then all of a sudden, like, Ava and Sarah are fighting her. And I love it. And it's like, she's like, hey, babe, it's happening. And she's like, we're final girls. And like Ava kind of them getting in their bag, dude. It's like, once again, they're badasses. Like, they're such a good duo, especially when they fight together. Like, that's like, yeah. I love that aspect of it, but at the same time, what's happening in 1989, things are good, and it's like, oh, everything kind of worked out. Obviously, Zari managed to get off the ship because she remembered how to kind of like, she doesn't think much of it, but she just kind of like, oh yeah, I'm smart, and I'm actually really smart, so I just, figured it out. But it's like, she set up the programming for, she was a hacker in general, but also she set up a lot of the programming for Gideon, so she kind of knows Gideon's ins and outs, whether she realizes it or not. And obviously Gideon doesn't remember that. But nevertheless, she ends up getting inside the limo, and they're there, and she's like, because she doesn't realize, like, wait, we're not in the same time period. And they end up getting attacked, and it gets revealed of like, holy crap, it's his mom. And it's like, she's like, I want to protect you. That's what this has all been about, because it was never Freddie who killed his friends all those years ago. It was actually her, because she got very protective. It's like, no, you're not going to take my son away from me, because it kind of worked both ways, where like his mom was his everything, and his mom, he was his everything to his mom, and for Freddie, his mom was his everything. So, but for him, it's like, I know who I am. I'm not going to let you do this. And she's like, well, and she's about to go like, well, I'm still going to do this anyway. Luckily, Bayrod shows up in time and uses his powers, and now Zari's seeing like, oh, what this is all about. And it's like, all right. So that's, now that I'm seeing it in action, I can understand why you stole the family heirloom. Because I also like that whole thing, because for her, it's a whole combination of things. Like, because Bayrod and Zari are actually having some like, development, because for her, she feels like Bayrod is like, you're the favorite and stuff like that. He's like the favorite. She's like, oh, you haven't noticed? Like, the fact of the matter is, mom and dad, like, if you had asked them for it, they would have willingly given it to you. And Zari feels like she kind of has to prove herself to her parents and stuff like that. But like, obviously, Bayrod's kind of pissed at her and calling her like a black hole. She's like, what was it like? I think he kind of, I forgot what he called her exactly, but he was kind of referring to her as something like a black hole, which he's kind of like, I guess maybe she kind of feels like, because Bayrod's just kind of making it seem like, oh, all you care about yourself, like all you do is care about yourself, you don't care about anyone else. And I guess that's exactly what he was getting at. So I don't, like, obviously that like hit a nerve of like, don't kind of make me seem like I'm shallow, like I'm more than that, you know? But yeah, now she kind of realizes, oh, I kind of had a bit wrong impression because my brother's actually a hero. Like, you guys go through time. We'll get to that soon enough. But I really, really love that moment between Freddie and Nora, because he's like, yeah, like, I know my mom needs help, but she's my everything. Like, she's kind of all I had. Because a line he had said is, I'm not going to be locked up. Because it's like his mom was basically keeping him like, you know, kind of a caged bird. It's kind of an example I've used recently. But that's kind of what it was very befitting considering the fact that he literally went to jail for like 15 years before being executed because of her. That was also interesting. I wonder what did she do with his body present day when you actually think about it? Because it's like, yeah, because I was wondering about that. I was like, no, it said Freddie. So I was like, maybe, because obviously we found out his mom died of a heart attack that same day. So I was like, maybe her body was beside it. I figured she took it, but it's like, no, she ended up being somewhere else. And obviously she tracked down a van and just retrieved her son's body, which is like I said, it's some Norman Bates stuff. Very, very psycho. Like, obviously, like I said, you can tell like the influences, like I said, the Carries, the psycho, but regardless of all of that, I mean, you can make the argument that you can definitely tell the also what's the face the Halloween influence with the whole mask and everything, and the knife being very Michael Myers like. So that was all interesting, but at the same time, but what this whole conversation meant, because like Nora literally knows what Freddie's going through. It's like what do I do next? And she's like, survive. She had a very dysfunctional childhood with her dad, and her dad, you know, kind of ended up kind of in his own right, kind of being a monster in the same vein that Freddie's mom was. So it's understandable. The fact of the matter is that that, you know, stuff like I just think it's so interesting how that ends up, you know, playing out in that regard of like, you know, her explaining like, you know, just because you come from a dysfunctional situation, it doesn't basically have to define you, you know, because once again, she was I just like that mirrored situation, and I think that also, you know, makes Nora kind of real. It validates also what she's doing too, of like, I can do real good, and I was able to do something, you know, because she also saved Freddie's life, because Freddie literally threw away his entire life to protect his mom, you know. And she's the one that needed to be locked away, not him. And now he was able to, and they ended up coming back to 2004, and they see that, oh, he's happy, and him and Tiffany are actually married, and it's like, that's awesome, you know. That was a beautiful way for that story to end. I'm glad it worked out in the end. Because I was thinking about it too. I was like, would they recognize everything that happens? Like, right, they would remember any time shifts. They remember Zari's situation, which is different, was because like obviously she's from a different time, so any shifts present day was going to affect her future. Where their memory of things don't change. Their memories of things will change, sure, but they're protected from the whole time shift situation is what I was trying to get at. I was like, so would they remember what they were? But it's like, yeah, they did. So I also love that argument between not argument, but that conversation between Ava and Sarah, where she was like, it's like you finally, because Ava's like, I got to be final girl, and then Sarah was like, yeah, but I didn't die. She's like, babe, you've died like more than 3 times, so let me have this. And it's like, okay, and I love that. And Mick and Allie end up having their moment. We see them hardcore making out, but I also appreciate the team like taking pictures and stuff like that. It's like, oh, celebrating. I love it. And it's like, wait, where's Mick? But at the same time, I also love the situation of like, you know, Zari, like I said, understanding her brother a little bit more. And I love him being like, the fact of the matter is, mom and dad, they worry about me more. Like, I'm the one that's at college for like, 5 years and stuff like that. But you're very successful. You've been successful since 19. So they might not show you as much attention because they show me more attention because I'm the favorite. I'm not the favorite. I'm the mess up. They're just like, oh, we got to watch Birad. He might, keep an eye on him. You don't have to worry about it. So, and Zari being like, yeah, I might stick around a little bit longer. And Birad being like, honestly, that wouldn't be too bad. I'm like, yay. Because it's nice because obviously Zari has basically went through like obviously 2 seasons kind of going at this alone. Like obviously she wouldn't remember that Behrad wasn't around to know that, but it's the whole thing of like now you get both of them at the same time, and obviously that's going to cause some effect going forward, with Legends of like what that means. Like Zari, especially the longer she sticks around, the more memory she's going to have, and it's going to be interesting to see like this version of Zari, like because obviously personality wise she's very different from the Zari we knew from the original timeline. So it's going to be interesting to see what this Zari brings to the Legends and her and Behrad's relationship. To actually be able to witness that, I think is going to be a pretty dope element to it as well, especially like what this means for her and Nate potentially. So all around, it's just so much fun in this episode. But also another side of things, because I love like John being like, yeah, I got to walk this path alone with Gary, because it's like, yeah. And I love that Gary was trying to like teleport himself there, but he messed up the spell, so now he's stuck walking backwards. It's like, yeah, no one's been in this place for wait, there's a part, wait, why are you here? And we see another John, and it's like, of course, Charlie. So this is where you've been. We ain't seen you in a while, but obviously Gary informs Charlie. So I guess now Charlie's kind of back into the fold thing, so we're probably going to be definitely seeing her obviously a lot more this season. So that's going to be pretty dope. But obviously John came there specifically because he wants to meet up with a witch who can help him out with his whole encore situation with Astra. And he's sitting there drinking, but the reason why is because the witch he's come to visit that's still behind that door is Astra's mom, and obviously she's not going to be too keen about seeing him. But I love what Charlie says, is she's like, I get it, like there's a lot of stuff about my past I don't like talking about either that none of you know about. I'm like, I'm sure we're going to probably dive into it, because there was a lot about Charlie we never learned last season, so this could be an interesting opportunity to see something kind of grow from there. I'm curious, are they going to, because like I said, like we're kind of getting all these different pairings and stuff like that this season, obviously. So obviously Ava and Sarah have each other, Ray and Nora. Then you also have Behrad and Nate, but that also ties into Zari, Mick kind of doing his thing. We'll see ultimately where that kind of ends up, but obviously John and Gary, but that could also include Charlie as well. So I'm interested to see ultimately where that goes. So I'm interested to see what happens when John ends up, talking to Astra's mom, and what role that can end up playing in this whole situation. I'm also curious, are we going to do a little bit more of what, Ray had suggested? Also, just the fact of him saying, like, oh, we should get to them before they break bad, and made me immediately, like, I just think Breaking Bad. And, like, it just, like, you can never hear that turn of phrase anymore, break bad. You just immediately think, like, are you making reference to Breaking Bad, or was that already a reference? Because, like, Breaking Bad was, like, the first time I'd ever heard, like, that specific phrase of what are you going to do, break bad? Like, you know what I mean? So that's the whole thing, so I'm sure it was already a turn of phrase, but I'm sure Breaking Bad probably made it even more of a turn, like a more common turn of phrase than maybe it already was. Probably common, like, as I'm getting caught up in semantics and stuff like that. But I'm curious, are they going to do that more often and try to be like, all right, let's try to go back and change this encore situation? Because that's one way to deal with an encore, making it so that they never become a thing in the first place, because otherwise they're impossible to kill. So there's that whole situation. So 3 encores down, probably a crap ton left to deal with, but I think obviously because they found a different means of handling the whole Mithri situation, so maybe obviously this will be their new way of handling encores. We'll ultimately have to wait and see. Maybe this was just a special circumstance, because it turns out, once again, Freddie wasn't a bad guy anyway, but by doing this, not only did they give Freddie a good life, so they ended up helping him out, but he also made sure that, his mom didn't become an encore, so it all kind of works out in the end. So I am very, very interested to see where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. Also, it seems like, I guess, that new intro is going to be sticking for a while. So once again, it's kind of crazy to see, like, these are the only ones that kind of purely get, like, a it and Flash are the only ones that have gotten, like, a full-blown new intro, and I think that's so interesting. So, but regardless. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.